Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you there?
I am here.
How is everything on your end, sir?
It's been all right.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's one of those take it or leave it type of ordeals, but as always, we are here to continue on our Independence Horror Marathon, where we take a look at the low-budget underground indie horror scene and see what they have to offer among the mainstream Hollywood indie low budget horror. And we got another choice pick tonight. One that this is Ian's first time with this director. Um, and a little backstory on this director is this is sort of honestly his more digestible films that he's made. Because we're talking about Sam Hell, and Sam Hell is he's well known in the underground circuits. A lot of sort of extreme, you know, the extreme underground. You really have to, you know, dig deep down the rabbit hole to get to Sam Hell, and some of the other people that are, sort of associated or affiliated with his name, where it's like very, again, fetish, horror, extreme, sort of, I wouldn't say bondage, but like bondage gear, a lot of vomit, gore, bodily self mutilation, body harm. And he's sort of in the same regards as like White Gardenia, Lucifer, um, in a sense, like maybe a Yan Chaos, but Yan's more extreme gore, with like necromance and meat butcher baby stuff. This one, again, Sam is more along the line of like a lot of fetish horror with a lot of vomit stuff and bodily harm, so stuff like that. So this one is, again, like I said, the more, I wouldn't say toned down, but it's not as in your face as some of his other films, like Love Dump or um, a lot of the stuff he does with Felicia Fisher. Um, so it's like very, again, it's very toned down in that regard and more palatable for your average, indie horror fan. You don't want to go too extreme, but you still want to have a little bit of, fun gore with like a slasher werewolf premise. That's what we have with our film tonight with Wolf, the axe-wielding werewolf from hell. And so we start out with our main character of the film, Don Johnson, and he's a traveling evangelist, going around preaching the word of God from the Bible. And he is coming from Ohio, and he is in California now, where he meets up with an old friend, Jedediah. And so he's going through, he's trying to find, he's sleeping on park benches, um, other people's houses, and just trying to spread the word of God. And every now and then, he just has these spasms, and I wouldn't really call them freakouts, but he just starts to go into convulsions, where he's really, I mean, Don, he's sort of like a happy-go-lucky, soft-spoken, sort of like a Jehovah's Witness, where they're really just like wanting to spread the gospel and their religion and everything. So it's sort of in the same vein as that, where like he's really, he's wanting to get the word out and like, hey, I want to talk about our Lord and Savior, um, with his teachings. And when he's doing that and talking in conversations with various people, that's when he starts to go into fits, and that's where he proceeds to change into the Wolf with an axe and go on a killing spree of whoever is in his way. And that is sort of the gist of the movie, honestly. It's a very simple premise where Don is trying to discover himself or figure out his purpose by the teachings of the Bible and having a coming with Jesus moment, literally, and trying to figure out the reasoning for his existence and the way he is, and what's going on with, again, all the murders going around, because he wakes up in like a drunken stupor, and he's drooling, he's like got drool at the side of his mouth, he's spitting, he has spittle, and he's just, like, after the transformation, it really, like, again, it's like a like coming out of it, it's like a, the hangover, but it's like a werewolf hangover. And so he's just going from place to place, just shall uh just moving along quaintly, just doing his things. And whenever he transforms, he just goes on a murderous killing spree for a good majority of the film, until he tries to figure out everything, to overcome the curse, because he thinks it's a curse, um, from he wants to think is like it's because he's a man of God, and he thinks that this curse, it's from the devil, but he like thinks it's a good curse because he wants to spread the teachings. And when he has his coming of Jesus moment, which we'll get into a little bit later in spoilers, he's just like he wants to do good, but he just doesn't know how to properly handle the situation. And just like, again, it's a lot of back and forth conversation here and there. I mean, even though conversations are scarce, a lot of the time there's the preachings. A lot of the preachings, he's given sermons to people in the park, uh, and trying to show them of their ways. He's talking to one that's a pothead, and he's like trying to get him to see that, trying to accept the Lord in his life. And so, like, again, he's just going through, he has these conversations, and when he's like really passionate about God, he starts to transform into the man wolf. And overall, it's a it's a perfectly fine watch. I mean, I didn't mind it. It has like all the things that I kind of enjoy for this type of fare. We have, it's a fairly subdued, gory practical effect slasher movie, but it's a werewolf. Uh, we're just a guy in a uh, flannel jacket and shirt, wearing a okay werewolf mask and a uh, axe that he's able to, what is it? Grab and pull with his might, basically. And so he just goes around attacking people. There's a couple in the park. There's a jogger. There's some of the people at the sermon he goes after, and it just goes on and on from there. And then, of course, him trying to figure out what his conscience is, and overcoming the obstacle, and trying to break the curse. Because him and his partner, Jed, who's also his sermon partner, where he's like able to help him, like, hey, if you're able to, because like you kill, when you're a man wolf, you kill. So now if you kill as you're in your human form, you could break the curse. And so there's a lot of that, kind of conversations back and forth towards the later end of the film. And then there's sort of a devious plot that uh, comes up as well, um, that shows up towards the end of the film as well. So there's a lot of little, it's not the most in-depth film for what it is, but it's exactly what it needs to be. Like it's like a hour and 10 minutes, if that, a little bit, excluding credits. Where they had some of the making of and some like blooper stuff. But it's a very, you're in and out type of film. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Um, I do think it gets a little uh, dull towards the last act, because it kind of really doesn't go nowhere for a good majority there towards that last act. Um, because it just felt like it's just repeating a couple stuff, like when Jed comes over with the lady friend, and like she just shows up like to watch over him, uh, and then he just kills her, and then Jed shows up again to do this and do that, and where he's chasing down Jed. So there's just a little few minor lull spots in it, but nothing to really damper the experience. Like it's perfectly accessible, and like I said, it's very palpable for Sam Hell's films. And if you're just wanting like a fun, you know, campy sort of cheeky uh, slasher movie with some decent practical effects. Like I said, there's some good, we'll get into the effects a little bit later, but like I'll just say, like there's some good bloodshed, some intestinal spillage. Um, so there's some good bloodshed and blood being splashed on people. Uh, so it does what it sets out to accomplish. I do think the character of Don and his struggles kind of it was sort of hit and miss a little bit because like I like the beginning half of it, and then it just kind of loses steam a little towards the last act um, with what he's trying to do. It felt like it needed a little extra oomph in that general regard, but you still get some good slashings here and there, and uh, it's a interesting conclusion. I will say that much. Uh, uh, and yeah, it's not terrible. And for what it is, it's perfectly fine. So, Ian, your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with what you said with it kind of, you know, getting a little dull, a little monotonous toward the end. I thought the pacing was okay. Um, like I I did enjoy also enjoyed the like the message that he was trying to get with the preachers on the street who are actually, like turn out to be monsters. I kind of like that whole that he was trying to put a message into this, even by, underneath all the silliness. The masks I thought were, I mean, they're cheesy, but I thought it added charm to the film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did think it was kind of funny that we have a werewolf that just gets an axe and decides to start killing people with it. And I was like, that's normally it's like fangs and claws, but I was like, at least they're going a little different route um, to make it more of a little slasher. And you brought up the woman who was supposed to watch over him. I like that she was fully clothed when she was on the couch, and then when she went to the door, she was just in a bra and a thong. And I was like, wait, I had to rewind it to make sure I didn't like miss something because I was like, I didn't see her take that off. When did she get naked or almost naked? I was like, I don't know if that was a continuity error or it was just something that happened off screen. That
No,
wasn't a minor gripe.
I think she was gonna. You know what? So.
Yeah, no, I was just like, whoa. Well, I'm a pervert, and I would have loved to seen that disrobing. But no, this movie was fun. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, from the name and the poster. Um I did like that, like I said, I did like that they were putting a message in it. Um and that's always nice. It wasn't really like subtle in any means necessary, but also like
No.
it didn't feel like it was preaching, even, which is funny because he is a preacher, a street preacher. I felt like it did really well with that, like with its trying to tell its message while also like maintaining its like campiness. I thought some of the practical effects looked great.
Yeah, those were
There
done
was
by
some,
James Bell, who does a lot of. Again, he's another indie director that does a lot of sort of. He created all the effects, and he comes to the Scarefest every now and then. And I have most of. I think I have everything except for his last one, which was I think
yeah,
it was after around midnight, after midnight, something like that. But he does some good job. Like he sells them on his website, and like he creates like skin lamps, and he sells like severed penises and hands and ears and all kinds of stuff.
it's
And
hilarious.
yeah, I know one year he had a skin lamp, and like that sold automatically. Like someone bought it when I was there. Like that's great. Um, but yeah, like his effects are pretty solid. Like I know him, and his stuff. He gets around. His work does, and it's pretty solid effects. And like again, his films are sort of underground too, but um, they're they're strange, some of them, but they're really, they're fun. A lot of them are, and like very, you know avant-garde. Some of them very. There's a few that's like, I think, is it Bleak, that's like sort of David Lynch inspired, with it's silent, with like the couple and like the exploding. Trust me, there's a lot to get into if you go down a marathon of James Bell films. I'll just say that. But yeah, he does a good job with his effects and blood work. And again, I do, you know support his work as well. Um, and he does some great job when it comes to the indie scene. Um, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ian.
Oh no, you are absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, like this, the practical effects were good. I thought a lot of the camera angles were pretty decent, especially
Hmm.
for a film like this. Usually they're all over the fucking place.
Yeah, especially as guerrilla as it is, because it's very, sort of guerrilla filmmaking, where
Yeah.
again, later in the main scene that involves Jesus, I'll just go ahead and say it. um they're in a park, and it's a public park, and they're in this field, and like just to have just to see that, because like there's some passerbys walking their dogs on the trail, and just to see like a dude with a video camera strapped to his chest, with an axe, chasing down Jesus, a guy in a Jesus outfit, in a park. That would have been a sight to behold.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like honestly, I mean it was done pretty well considering like, and like I said, most of these films tend to kind of not be so well done. So just to see that was kind of, refreshing. And like I said, I was expecting this to be like a horrible movie. So I was, pleasantly surprised that it was as decent as it was. Um, it was a good werewolf movie. And
Yeah, for
we
for
don't
for
get
what
that.
it is. I mean, it's perfectly fine for what it is.
Yeah.
You go into this, it's just, a low ball, cheap slasher. I mean that with all due respect. I mean, because that's what it is. It's a cheap slasher. Cheap man. Werewolf mask you got at some store, with a rubber, sometimes a rubber axe, and just going around spraying blood on people, and having their intestines fall out, or getting their dick severed, and playing with said dick, trying to put it back on. That was another great scene. The penis, uh,
That was pretty
severed
funny.
penis. Because that whole scene, like he gets it cut off, and then it still sprays blood after, and it shoots on the woman. That kind of reminded me of Followers of the Deadlight. That's another sort of Yan Chaos film, where like it has this girl in this bathtub, and the guy is like jacking, and he's like putting like doing stuff with his penis, right? And then he cuts it off, and then it sprays. He comes, and then he cuts it off again, and then sprays more blood on her. It's like it's a wild film. Followers of the Dead like. I'll say that much. Like I said, you have to go down that underground rabbit hole, and as I said, this is more palpable and easy to digest compared to some other his other works, and of course like other transgressive art type films that I mentioned earlier. The fetish horror with the bondage and stuff. This is it's not it's not exactly like Lucifer Valentine stuff, but I mean it's still in the same realm of that type of ordeal. But they're more willing participants, to say the least, as compared to a Lucifer Valentine film. But yeah, it's fun if you're just wanting like a cheap, lowbrow slasher with an interesting religious message. I mean, it stands on its own. It has it's not the best made. I'll say that. I mean, it's guerrilla filmmaking, small budget, and it's just Sam Hell going around there with like the camera himself just standing there on the side of the road pointing and shooting, and a lot of it, probably some of it's improvised or on the cuff. I mean, there's a general idea of a few scenes that like progress the story, but I think a lot of it's like ad-libbed, and it's stupid, and it's just dumb, and I mean that again, all due respects, but that's what it is. It's just like if you want like a cheapo monster werewolf slasher flick, I mean this pretty much has your cup of tea, because there's all kind of again the practical effects, bloodshed, all the severed limbs and penises, and just like where it goes towards the end is kind of interesting. Even though again, like I said, it has that little bit of a lull, but it's still like they introduced some interesting characters, like what was it, Pinktail, the guy in the pink ski mask. He was an interesting character.
Yeah.
And it's just like some of the conversations that they have together is just out there and outlandish, but it's fun. It's just like it's that dumb humor that you just like want to hear. It had the soundtrack is stupid, and which I liked. Like Jesus got me high. Don't need your drugs. When he's going through walking around when you first get introduced to Dawn, and then there's again a bunch of other like when again I'm bringing up Pinktail, but like when he's talking to him and talking about like, yeah, my wife and his girl, my girl, like my girlfriend and her husband and his husband, because it's like going in the line, like everyone's married to everyone, and then they're talking about like, I need this part of the body because of this, and the hips are good, and just like there's all these little fun, intricate little quirky conversations going along, which I enjoyed that aspect of it, especially towards the last act. So it's dumb fun. I mean, if you want just a fun, cheap slasher, doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, it's sort of talked about offline to Ian. It's like it's sort of similar to Final Cut, where it's like a lot of stuff's like rinse and repeat, but it's not too egregious and overly long just to be overly long, where it's just like the same thing happening again and again. This one, like, yeah, like he wakes up from a drunken stupor, after a transformation, and then he goes around trying to find himself, and then he talks to someone, transforms, and then rinse and repeat. But it's like it doesn't overstay its welcome, and it keeps moving the pace a little forward, and the progression is not as egregious.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the things that was good about this film, was that it knew when to change up the thing at what was going on, giving us a little something different. Um, different preaching, like to different people. Um, the whole just internal turmoil with you know with who he's becoming, um, and it was just like enough to keep it fairly interesting. Um, and I mean, it is a short watch. It is a
Yeah.
very short watch, and like, and I felt like they didn't really waste too much time with between scenes, or well, really between plot points. Um, I thought the idea of him transforming when he gets around a sinner was, you know, interesting. I thought, him trying to convert people and everything that happens with that. I thought that was, pretty engaging. It was just really interesting to see where they were going to go next, and it doesn't really it kind of at some parts meanders a little bit, but not too egregious, not enough to make me hate this film.
Yeah, like you're already at
Or
the end of it. Like, there's just a couple more minutes. It's like the plot,
yeah,
or something like that. Like this little low point. But yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Like, um, I enjoyed all that, and like his struggles, and then of course the God moment where he's the video game first person choose your adventure with talking to Jesus and going after Jesus at certain places and
like kill her.
asking him questions. Or what is it? Is it MMO or not MMO? It's sort of like I don't know, whatever. It's the first person video game segment. Um, and then like he's asking all the questions and like the choices are funny. Um, and then
Yeah,
he's going through the choices trying to figure out what he wants to say and he goes for the obvious choice. Um, and then like to realize like is it a curse or is this a God curse? And like no, it's not a God curse. And it says kill Jesus and make the curse your own and or something like that. And he chases down Jesus. That's funny. Again, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the film. Of course, is that scene because it's just so outlandish. Like we're just gonna have a scene where he's because like when that it leads into like again he's coming from like he's not in a park but like he's at this like somewhere in the California this like public place where like there's this library sort of building or uh, statue thing and he's like trying to find himself and he walks out of the gate and then like a guy's looking at him while he's down on his knees praying and then that's when he comes to Jesus and just like he's fighting his inner demons and inner struggles and finally after that whole ordeal he's like okay now I know who I am and what I need to do or what I need to be and that whole realization factor kicks in and like he could have done a few more killings after that like if he's going to do that but it just kind of again you have the one after he has that come to Jesus moment um which I think it was the black chick watching over him. Like there needed to be like maybe just like another killing or two, just out of the blue. But again, I guess it like if he was going after sinners, or around people that were sinning, like I could have seen like a few more get tossed in there. But it just kind of he kind of harkens back to like his earlier turmoil at the beginning of the movie instead of like becoming the wolf. He wants to
yeah,
fight the curse, of course, but like if he's doing that and he's going after like I know what I must do, and then he just stays in the pool house and just hides away, and like it just kind of doesn't really mesh with what he kind of wanted to do, like after everything. I don't know, just again a little minor qualm, It's nothing major. You just got to look at it as like it's just a campy, tongue-in-cheek slasher movie with a guy in a werewolf mask and an axe. That's all it is. You're trying to if you really try to pinpoint it, and if you go in that, you're not gonna really have that much fun with it. You're just gonna like, oh, this is this is just kind of dumb, and it is dumb. But I'm just saying, like you're not gonna be in the right mindset for it, and like you just gotta put those minor complaints, throw them in a bag, and toss them over a hill, and just like it's a dumb campy slasher movie. That's all it is. And again, the message is
Yeah.
good. They're what's trying to achieve. And again, you're in and out within an hour, and you have some good practical blood effects. You have some nudity. Um, you have some fun moments. The whole severed penis and like, oh god, not my moneymaker. And he's like fumbling around with his penis trying to attach it back while the blood's shooting on the lady with her exposed tits. And it's just like, and then he comes up and puts the axe in her head. There's a lot of fun moments to be had in the film. It's just like this is exactly kind of what you want out of a campy slasher. So
Yeah, exactly. And the whole I think it was a smart choice to do the werewolf thing cuz it's kind of like I always think and I was just thinking about this just the other day. Somebody had brought up Jekyll and Hyde when I was thinking of werewolves and I was like, that's kind of similar. But
yeah,
I think it was great, like the duality of it all. Like he wants to be this good Christian pastor, convert people, but like he's angry toward the sinners who just won't convert and everything that just happens with that. Um, you know, and we're talking earlier about it, about the, kind of a little bit about the nudity in it. And frankly, I mean, honestly, yeah, there was quite a bit of nude scenes in it, but I didn't think it was like too egregious.
yeah. I mean, compared to last week's film, I mean, I think that it's weird balance. Like how that one just felt like just unnecessary for a lot of the scenes. It's just like there, and like this one, it was again more thought out, even though it is just still naked women. Like they're not. It's just not as you said, not as in your face and egregious as last week's film.
Well, and this, and then like I brought up before, and I was even talking to like my buddy and my wife about this. I made them watch, I told you this, but I made them watch Slaughterhouse Slumber Party, which is 80% nude.
Yeah.
But I feel like what happens is that if it's done right and well, that it falls into the background of the story and it's not used in a way to derail the story, which I kind of felt like Final Cut did. I felt like the nudity was just framed in a way where it kind of just derailed what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And just giving us all kinds of fan service. The nudity was there to kind of shock us, but at the same time, like emphasize what he was against. So I felt like it actually like enhanced the story because, he was killing prostitutes and drug addicts and stuff like that because it goes against his idea of like what people should follow. And I felt like it wasn't egregious because it kind of fell into the background. And yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like it's not like when I think of Final Cut, I'm just thinking of that girl just standing there, like
Yeah.
all those girls just standing there doing absolutely nothing, and it's just like they're in the center of the film, which means that is the main focus instead of off to the side like it was in this movie. and I wanted to give credit to like the positionings and everything. Like there's a lot of like like film study theories and things in there that I was noticing that I was like, oh, this is, you know, why they did this and this and this. And I was like, I was appreciating it on a film studies level. And Final Cut just kind of like, it just, it just was kind of pointless. And while this one I felt like emphasized like what he was going for, like the preacher who was killing people was like, this is why I'm doing this. And I just, you know, was just thinking about that while I was
Yeah, it
watching
definitely
that.
balanced out.
Yeah, because in Slaughterhouse Slumber Party, I don't think, I mean, I think of the scenes where they're naked, but at the
Yeah,
same time, it's just like, it just, it's first,
it's
it's
because the
shocking,
story
and then it,
is, yeah,
yeah.
it's just
And
because it goes into that tongue in cheek route where it's just like so outlandish. Where like, yeah, I'm not even paying attention to them being naked because we have farting possessed demon girls, like, and
yeah,
it's like it becomes, you don't even pay attention. Like, yeah, she's running around naked, like black and green, or I think she's green,
it,
um, and she's just going around there
oh,
naked, just full on frontal, and like, yeah, I don't even paying attention to it because like we're looking at this like sort of
yeah.
Evil Dead
It
sort of
wasn't
clone, and it's like,
framed
yeah,
as sexy. And that was the
no,
thing. Like, it wasn't, it was never framed in a way that was supposed to be like sexy. It was just supposed to be framed as, hey, this is our bodies. This is what it's a part of the story.
yeah,
And that's why I think this one works. And I was even telling my wife, I was like, you know, another movie that comes to mind is the remake of My Bloody Valentine. That opening scene was just absolutely pointless. And I was just like, you know, and I was talking to her, I was like, that is where I feel like it just derails what's trying to happen. And I thought this was done well because it was a part of the story, so it falls into the background of the story instead of just trying to be hot and sexy for the sake of that alone. And that's really sad because I really would have loved. I think that, you know, Final Cut did have some good um, scenes that could have been done so much better if they just, you know, didn't try to throw that in constantly, which made it feel like that movie took forever. While this one knew what it wanted to do, it had it hit its marks. It, you know, gave us some fan service when necessary and appropriate for the story
and they
instead
didn't
of
skip on the
just,
blood.
yeah. What was that one stripper movie we watched that we complained about and they redid it?
uh Till death do us part.
Yeah, because we was like, this scene just goes on. That one scene just went on for so long,
Yeah,
and then and it that derailed the story. And I can probably go on this topic for hours, but I'm not going
yeah,
to
again,
because I'm
again,
tired.
I'll bring that up because again, like we've brought it up before, but like we reviewed Till Death Do Us Part. It's a zombie, love story with this husband and wife. They're going through a troubled time, and she's a stripper, works at the strip club, and he's kind of like rekindling, like they're falling apart, but like they're wanting to rekindle, and then they're stuck in this zombie apocalypse inside the stripper bar, and she eventually turns into a zombie. And then, like, during the ordeal of her transforming, he falls in love with her again. Again, a lot of the, which we just mentioned, a lot of the issues came to be where it was there was a lot of stripping scenes that like just went on. There's like scenes that weren't like crucial to the plot, especially that bike scene where he goes to the bike park, and then he came out with a director's cut uh, a year or two later, and he went back and re-edited a lot of the scenes. And again, I don't know if it was our review or anything like that. It could have been, but he went in there, he edited out a lot of the he trimmed down some of the scenes, took out the bike scene, um, some of the dance numbers with the strippers were toned down, and then he added more backstory to the relationship and added more love aspect to the relationship in the unrated cut, and it really shows like how you can take something um, that it like we're mentioning, like just like the nudity for no reason or dance sequences, and just like tweak it and then make it work better while adding a little bit of more character depth and love story with him and his zombie wife. And it really does work. And again, I mentioned it before, I gotta get you to watch that, Ian, so you can get your opinions on it. We might do another review, like do a special and just rewatch it and have both versions of our review up there, the original and then the unrated director's cut.
Yeah, no, and it's just so funny that like I've had all of these conversations, and we had reviewed 2 different movies that like like basically helped me like with my point, or just was like thinking of my because I've been thinking about this for a little bit because of all like the a lot of discussions online and stuff about nudity and framing and blah blah blah, but that's a conversation for somewhere else. But I think we've gone on.
No, I'm right there with you. I think we managed to hit all our marks and a little bit over there. But that's how these shows go. We just bring up another conversation and it leads into a bigger conversation. But that is going to do it for Man-O-Wolf. Like I said, if you want something a little, I mean, honestly, it's sort of like if you want something sort of like Trauma, Trauma-esque, I mean, without being Trauma, I mean, give it a whirl. You can buy these Blu-rays from Sam Hell on his website, or you can go on eBay. There's a couple on there. That's where I got mine. I do want to thank Sam for also providing the screener link, because that's what I provided for Ian. So I do appreciate that. Again, like I said, you put something limited to 150 copies and signed by the cast and crew, I'm going to get it. And that's what I did. So if you're interested, go to eBay, snag a copy, go to the website. I don't know if it's going to be the supporter edition or not, but that's on the one on eBay. It is that's signed. So get it while you can, because this is probably one of those that's going to be not easy to find down the road. Again, because it is sort of that underground extreme horror. That stuff's very hard to come by.
Yeah.
When you get into the Filthina Pig stuff of horror, Torture of a Pig, like the really shock horror underground stuff, that stuff's going to be hard to come by in like 10, 15 years. So you might as well scoop it up while you can. But as I said, it knows exactly what it is. It has a decent, for what the campy tongue-in-cheek slasher werewolf movie, solid effects from James Bell and uses of it. Some fun scenes, an interesting concept, and I think it manages to do what it wants to do quite well in that regard. Like, again, minor lull spots here and there, but it doesn't take away from the overall film. But with that being said, Ian, it has been great talking with you, as always. I appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you next time as we continue on the Independence Horror Marathon here on Horror Night Oasis.
Good night, everyone.